for Parshas Yitro. The pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu initially, before his father-in-law came to him and suggested a solution to this problem, was doing something that seems at face value extremely inefficient. People were preparing to receive the Torah. They had been given a small amount of legal education while they're traveling through the desert on their way to Mount Sinai. And Moshe is basically answering everyone's questions single-handedly. People come with a shaila. It's not clear what kind of questions people had in this very primitive and rudimentary society that they were in the process of building, even before the giving of the Torah. But whatever questions came up, did the animal belong to me? Did it belong to my neighbor? There was an accident that happened, who's liable? All of these different kinds of questions would be brought to Moshe. And the Torah says, Vayeshev Moshe lishpot es ha'am, that the next day after Yisro had come, he sees Moshe judging the people. Vayamod ha'am al Moshe min haboker ad ha'arev. And people see that Moshe is judging the community from morning until night. And Yisro says to Moshe, this is not efficient. And he says to him, Navol Tibol, you're going to wear out. And the nation's going to wear out. No one's going to be happy. And therefore what you need to do is to set up a hierarchical judiciary system whereby there are lower judges and higher judges, and only the really difficult questions should be passed up to you. That's really what Yisro advised, and Moshe adopted Yisro's system. There's a lot to discuss in that whole story, why Moshe needed to rely on his father-in-law, why he couldn't see the solution for himself. Right? So there's a lot to discuss. I want to, as it relates to our discussion today, there's a short story in the Gemara that I wanted to share with you. It's source number 2. It's in Maseches Shabbos Daf Yud. And the Gemara tells us the story of Rav Chizda and Rabbi bar Rav Huna, Havu Yasvi Bedina Kula Yoma. These two sages, Rav Chizda and Rabbi bar Rav Huna, were judges. And they had a very busy docket on one particular day, where they spent the entire day hearing different court cases from morning until evening. Hava kacholish libayhu. And their heart became weak. Rashi tells us there are two interpretations of what it means their hearts became weak. It either means that they became physically hungry, because they hadn't eaten all day, they didn't have time even to take a break. But he says it could also mean that they were emotionally distraught because they felt empty because they hadn't had time to study Torah for themselves that entire day. All we're doing is taking care of communal needs, and we haven't really had time to focus on our own Torah study and enrichment. Tana lahu Rav Chia bar Rav midifti. A third sage came over to them and saw their state of disturbance, and he quoted for them a pasuk, Vayamod ha'am al Moshe min haboker ad ha'arev. Notice the pasuk says that the nation stood in front of Moshe from morning until evening. V'chisale al daitcha shemoshe yoshe v'dan kol hayom kulo. He says, do you really think that Moshe was that thick to allow people to stand there the entire day from morning until night, and that's all he was doing the whole time? Torah so masai naases. When would Moshe have a chance to study his own Torah if he's taking care of all of the communal needs all day? So ela lomar lecha kol dayan shedan din emes la'amito afilu sha'echas ma'ale alav hakasuv ki ilu nase shutuf lahakodesh baruch hu b'maisa bereshis. And rather, says the sage Rav Chia bar Rav, he said the sentence is not to be taken literally. It does not mean that Moshe literally spent every waking hour judging the people from morning until night. It means that he took a part of the day to judge the nation, but that portion of the day that he took was tantamount to creating heaven and earth, which was created from evening until morning. And that's the connection. Because the reason why the Torah says that Moshe was judging the people from morning until evening, it's the reference to the morning and evening of the creation of the first day of creation. Vayihi erev vayihi boker. And if a person dedicates his life, a certain portion of his life, to taking care of the community, he becomes God's partner in the creation of heaven and earth, about which it says, and it was evening and it was morning. That's what he told them. And basically what he was trying to explain to them is, I know you're trying to be dutiful and devoted public servants, but lo zu haderech, you're not doing it the right way. You can't spend your entire time, because you're gonna burn out. You've got to spend a portion of your day taking care of communal needs, and then another portion of your day taking care of yourselves. Whether it's eating properly, sleeping properly, studying Torah properly, you've got to take care of your own sustenance in order to, and if you do so, you'll be just as good as Moshe Rabbeinu. Yes?
But if that would be the explanation, why would Moshe need Yisro to tell him what to do?
Great question. The Gemara does not address that question. I agree, that's a fantastic question. You can come up with different answers. Maybe Yisro felt that despite the fact that Moshe had limited hours, that only helped Moshe. But it didn't help all the people that were standing on line. You understand? In other words, here we're focusing on the needs of the judge. But what about the needs of the people? Right? And so that's why he told Moshe, you need to set up a hierarchical system so that you can distribute the people. It's like if there was only one Service Ontario, can you imagine? I mean, there needs to be like different regional branches, you know, so that's basically what he was telling us.
But also, did Moshe have to learn Torah? I thought Moshe knew the whole Torah. Moshe had to learn Torah?
Moshe was still, whatever Torah means in this context, his own spiritual sustenance, his meditation, his communion with the divine, whatever it means. Clearly, when Moshe is working on helping his fellow human being, he's detaching himself from his relationship with Hashem in some way. Because Moshe is in the clouds. Moshe is trying to have a communion with God at all times. That's one of the reasons why he demurred initially from accepting the role. He didn't want to be so disconnected from Hashem. He wanted to really have that very close relationship. So basically that's the explanation of the Gemara. Now let me just share with you what Rav Kook says to elaborate on this story. And this is really the direction that we're going in. We're not going to be able to read the whole thing, so we'll just try to read the bold sentences, the bold paragraphs, because it's a very rich language, the language that Rav Kook uses, and you'll basically get the gist if we read that portion. He says, "Hatishuka hayoter gedola shememalaat et lev hagedolim shebebnei adam hashleimim v'hatzadikim hi lihiyot tamid oved avodat haklal." He says the greatest aspiration that a righteous person can ever have is to be able to serve the community. Lehitiv kifi kocho el haklal kulo kifi asher tasig yado. Shezohi avodat Hashem hatamima b'muvna ha'amiti. He says this is the highest form of service, is to be a public servant, is to say I'm going to devote my life to helping Klal Yisrael. A person, every Jew who aspires for greatness should have that as his or her highest aspiration. What can I do today to help my people? That's the goal. V'hinei kasher matzu makom hashlimim halalu lepu'ulatam b'marechet hamishpat lihiyot laho'il la'adatam. He says when the opportunity presents itself to a righteous person to be able to help the community, to be able to help his people, lo ratzu b'shum ofan lachadol me'avodatam b'kodesh gam chelek zman hayoter katan ba'asher chashvu la'mishpat ki eich yamod libam b'menucha b'yotam mesichim da'atam mitovat haklal kulo hasoveb otam ulhitztamtzeim b'ashlamatam ha'yechidit. Such people have a natural drive. I've got to spend every waking moment doing that highest level of aspiration that a human being can have. I can't possibly take any time for myself because every moment that I take to relax and to do my own stuff is taking away time from that highest of aspirations, from that highest of goals. So how can I possibly do that? I'm going to be wasting time. It's not right if I take away time from helping the klal to do my own thing. V'hinei rayonam zeh mana mehem menuchat nafsham ad shehuchrachu limno mipnei chad tidirat iskei haklal b'mishpeteihem me'asok b'hashlamatam hagufanit v'gam haruchanit lefi shtei ha'horaot shebechol hashlibayu. And he says, and this is the problem, is that what these people do is that essentially they burn out if they have that attitude, if they refuse to attend to their own needs and their own both bodily and spiritual needs. As we explained, there's two translations to chalash libayu in that Gemara. It either means that they became physically hungry or they became spiritually deficient in some way, realizing that they hadn't studied Torah that day. He says that's the problem that occurs. And this is the problem, is that if a person needs to realize, says Rav Kook, that attending to one's own physical needs is not a zero-sum game. You're not taking away from serving the community by taking time for yourself. Taking time for yourself only refuels you and re-energizes you to enable to do what you need to do to help the community, to help your people. And let's just skip down. He says, Al kein Adonenu Moshe ba'asher kol chayav nitunim hayu la'am Hashem. He says Moshe had dedicated his entire life to the nation of God. Al kein ha'am amar alav u'v'kocho hitkayem bepu'ulotav miboker ad arev af shebemeshach hazman shemiboker v'ad arev nitmazgu gam kein pu'ulot lahashlamato apratit. He says Moshe, the loftiest of people, attended to the people from morning until night, but only a percentage of that time was he actually sitting in judgment of the people actively. A large percentage of that time he was attending to his own needs, but it is still attributed to him as if he took care of the community from morning until night. Aval kulan hayu nisuot lamatarato haniskava, because even the time that he took for himself was done with the intention so that I can re-energize, rejuvenate myself, and so forth. Al kain lo zoti hamarge'a shahayishtokakut lahashlamet haklal ta'ik lahashlama pratit. He says, and therefore it's not the correct approach to think that the desire to serve the community in some way has to squelch my own personal nourishment. Ki im ha'ish hagadol v'tov halev ha'oved Hashem avodat tama tzarich sheya'aleh lemida zu lahaskil ki kol asher yoter yachiv et hashlamato ha'pratit ken yoter yuchal lehishtalem ba ba'avodat ha'klal. Person has to have the following idea in mind. The more that I am able to elevate myself internally as a perfected individual, the more I'll be able to help the klal. If I have nothing to give because I'm spiritually and physically exhausted inside, then I can't possibly help the klal. I can't possibly help the community. I therefore need time away from the community to re-nourish, re-energize, and to make myself someone who's worthy of helping the community. Otherwise, the community will end up losing because I will be deficient as a provider. So that's the attitude that he says that Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us. That's what the story of the Gemara is trying to teach. You can't accomplish your goal unless you take some of that time for yourself. Al kain ein midat avodat hatzibor ne'erechet lefi kamot hazman ki im kefi eichut ha'pu'ula. He says you cannot gauge the value of being a community servant by how many hours you put into that effort, but rather the quality of that effort. V'tova yoter pu'ula shel sha'a echat hayotzeit b'menuchat nefesh u'mechumshat baguf bari me'avodat tidira ha'mechaleshet et haguf u'mevazvezet yoter midai et koach haruchani. Therefore, he says 1 hour of community service that is done with peace of mind, with strong body and strong soul, is qualitatively better than spending an entire day in an exhausted state, where you feel drained. And that's where we get back to our Gemara that compares the community servants to a creator, to God creating heaven and earth. Shekol habriya kula achuzahi bechalakeha yachad, v'chol hadarush le'eza hashlama klalit mushpahi b'mida rechova ba'otzar haparati shemimenu ba'hashefa haboker v'ha'erev yom echad hu. He says, creation is made up of so many different components when you think about it. And so many different opposites. There's darkness, there's light, there's morning, there's night. There are some things, there's some elements that are very heavy, some elements that are very light, some things that are for the water, some things that are for dry land. There's so many different opposites and different components. But they all comprise Yom Echad. They all comprise one day, one creation. Afal pi shahayam hu otzar b'kirbo et hod hachayim, et ha'avodah v'hargashat hachayim. Life is so full of variety. It is so full of every type of experience in life, and nonetheless, omnam ha'erev maspik l'menucha v'chalifat ha'koach, but nonetheless, we all need an evening to renew our strength. Al kein hem yachad yom echad b'klalutam shavim b'ma'alatam li'inyan ha'ashlama ha'kolelet. We spend a third of our time sleeping, but that sleeping provides us with the strength so that we can continue functioning over the course of the day. And just to read that one last line in bold in the last paragraph, V'cha'asher zehu mishpat ha'briya kula shechalakeha achuzim v'nitzrachim zel hazeh. Just like all of the different components of creation contribute to one large tapestry, one large whole, and all are interdependent upon one another, al kein hu nasa bemet shutaf lahakadosh baruch hu b'maaseh bereshit shutaf kavua. So too does a person who devotes himself to the community, but also takes time to nourish himself spiritually and physically. Such a person is also a partner with Hashem, who created the entire world that way. Hashem created a time for rest. Hashem created a time for waking. Hashem created a night. Hashem created a morning. And there's a time for everything. It doesn't mean that a percentage of Hashem's creation is wasteful. What a waste that we have to sleep. That's the nature of the way Hashem created the world. We have to renew ourselves periodically. And so therefore, a person needs to bear this in mind anytime they undertake an endeavor which requires a certain amount of devotion and constancy, is that I'm going to devote myself, let's say, to my favorite project, whatever it is, whether it's Chai Lifeline or Tomchei Shabbos or my shul's board or whatever the cause that I want to dedicate myself to. But I have to do it in moderation. I have to make sure that in that effort that I'm dedicating myself to, or my own family for that matter, in the effort that I'm dedicating myself to, that is to help a collective that is much more important than myself, I have to remember that if I don't take care of myself first, I will not be able to take care of others. The taking care of myself, therefore, is not in contrast, does not detract from my ability to take care of others, but it only enhances it as long as I do it with that intention in mind. And that's what the message to these two rabbis was. Moshe Rabbeinu was not doing something foolish. He was completely cognizant of his own need to nourish himself, but that is what gave him the strength to be able to take care of the rest of Klal Yisrael. Okay? Yes?
This is just another example to me of how everything is really in the Torah. I mean, this idea that Rav Kook is doing, it's so modern. Like if you read wellness magazines and things like that, or even just people in the modern day culture. Ariana Huffington wrote this whole long article about sleep and how she discovered how sleep is so important to the rest of her life, and everyone makes such a big deal out of it.
It's here.
Exactly.